oceans. And that number was much larger than any, and that's actually equivalent to 5 garbage bags full of trash for every foot of coastline across the world, still going into the oceans, which was much larger than prior estimates that we had seen, and that number is projected to double by 2025. So actions like you're taking that really show leadership are not just making a difference here along the California coastline and inland waters, but also setting a model, I think, nationally and hopefully for the world. So I really applaud you for the trailblazing efforts. I will add that on the comment about receiving water monitoring, that's something that we would like to see built into the statewide approach more than it currently is. The monitoring that is proposed really won't necessarily tell us the efficacy of the program in terms of what's actually happening in the waters. And the efforts that the regional boards in LA and San Francisco Bay have made, I think, have shown that they're now deciding that they need to have some receiving water monitoring. Both LA River and Ballona Creek wetland, or Ballona Creek waters continue to have trash in them despite the great progress that's been made. And so the regional board is looking at revising the TMDL to incorporate receiving water monitoring, and I think likewise San Francisco Bay is looking at introducing some monitoring observation approach in the draft permit language that they will be putting out for public notice. So this is, as I think has been acknowledged by some of Tam's comments, an iterative process. There's going to be a phasing here. Many of the regional boards haven't put any of these requirements into place yet, but we would really like to see some greater attention to receiving water monitoring, both so we can see if these are working for the MS4s and the statewide permits, but also that they're working for identifying sources of trash that perhaps aren't being captured, that are getting through from non-point sources or otherwise. So I want to congratulate you. We'd like to see you adopt this, and we want to continue to be partners to you and to the municipalities and counties who are responsible for getting this done. So thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I was wondering if staff could comment on the receiving water monitoring. We have provisions in the amendments for it, but also, is there an EPA method for measuring trash and receiving water?
Well, before I mention that, I'd like to mention that Jane Diamond is retiring, and I'm sure this will be the last time that you see her before you, and I'd like to thank her for her service and the fine working relationship we've had with USCPA. And
actually, I have a special request, though. Before you retire, could we sort of discuss toxicity? I think there's some outstanding issues we need to wrap up before you can ride off into the sunset.
So there's a couple of things. There are the monitoring that we described, the questions and answers that are required don't require receiving water monitoring, but don't preclude receiving water monitoring. It makes sense to me for the permitting authority to be looking at what works for their permit and to fit that into their permitting scheme. And so continued work with the things like what Kat was discussing, which some sort of a special study to look at beach trash and the reductions in there, or the rapid assessment work that some of the permittees in San Francisco are doing, are all examples of how that could work, and that staff is committed to working with the regional boards and the permittees to look at effectiveness of the provisions and the permits.
So there is no EPA method for trash loading? And
not that I know of, but we do have a swamp method for assessment.
Thank you. No, and I would really encourage the permittees, your organizations, but also the science organizations. There are tools out there for loading. There's science that can be brought to bear on this difficult question, and that can be possibly an outcome of this commitment moving forward to define the outcome of these efforts. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, the timer is set for 15 minutes, which is what was requested, and we don't have time to go to 20. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Station.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'm Leslie Tamminen on behalf of Seventh Generation Advisors. We congratulate you for bringing this historic policy forward. We congratulate the staff for their many years of work, and especially Chief Deputy Director John Bishop, who we know has been working on this for decades. We're here to support this policy. We think it's historic. Our first slide, keep going, is a picture from a New York Times article showing two markers: carbon isotopes from nuclear explosions and plastics. A formal decision by the International Commission on Stratigraphy is years away, but scientists the world over are considering plastic as one of the defining impacts of humankind. And we think that highlights how desperately needed this policy is. We can skip the second slide. Can you show me how to move this? I'm sorry. Because Ms. Diamond has already covered the new science that came out about it. My request to the board, on the third slide, there, is, wait a minute, no, wait, yeah, we don't have a slide for it, is that we wanted to ask for minimal language changes that simply make the policy more internally consistent, accurate, and don't subject it to additional SWRCB review. We're concerned that the policy has made some incorrect assumptions and conclusions about source control ordinances in general, and has been inadvertently overzealous in discouraging other kinds of source control as a way of complying, not as a demonstration of compliance or something for more time credit, but as a method that cities can use. We have submitted brief language clarifications for page 88, 99, and 103 and 170 of the SED. If staff is amenable to reviewing them, we would have asked the board to adopt them, but if written records are not accepted at this point in time, I may have a way orally that I can sum it up at the conclusion of our testimony briefly. We understand that you don't want to redo anything, but we just want you to know we want the policy to say, we understand you don't want to say do source control, but we just ask it not say do not ever do source control. As written, it actively encourages throwing out the source control baby out with the plastic bag water. And it's a problem because the climate of fear that has been created by the plastics industry, lawsuits, now a referendum for the state plastic bag ban. So we would urge you to consider our requested changes and not give industry a stake to drive through the heart of any city or anyone inclined to do any kind of source control ordinances for extended producer responsibility, foam, cigarette butts, incentive programs like green certification, whatever.
Leslie, if I may cut in, let's just all acknowledge that you can read the suggested language and thus change them into your verbal comments today. I would actually like to see them if you have them available.
We do. Do you want to do that at the conclusion of our joint presentation, or did you?
Yeah.
Let's do it now.
Let's do it now.
Okay. Okay.
Hold the
All right.
clock.
Can I ask one of my colleagues to come up with me because he was
Sure.
very. Sean, you wanna come on up? Or Sarah, you want to come up too?
So if I can, and maybe Jonathan wants to jump in as well. First of all, just to be really clear, these would not be changes to the trash amendments.
SED.
These are just to the staff report. And I think the staff actually, in conversation with some of these representatives, is actually prepared to propose some changes on their own. So we're not accepting this into the record, but they do have some changes, and I think that they can put it on the screen if the board would like to hear about it now.
Oh, yes, then I would like to hear the staff's suggested changes. Right? If someone could walk me through what these.
Okay.
Stacy, is this yours?
No, this is ours.
The proposed language that you see up here is language that I've evaluated, and to echo what the commenter has indicated, that for all intents and purposes, the issue was the the notion that we were too conclusory with asserting that regulatory source controls would be substitution and not qualify for the trash amendments. And we recognize that we needn't be so conclusory, and that those that may involve product substitution would, of course, not qualify for track 2, but it was not our intention to completely obliterate the notion of a product ban potentially being able to qualify. So with that, I have looked at these proposed changes and are generally amenable with all of them. So with that, if
Can you
the
scroll it up so we can?
Okay. And I would clarify that up here on on item 1, where it says SED page 88, the revised documents, that would be the SED page 98, the second full paragraph under institutional controls is where this language is found. Howie? Okay. With regard to that change, before scrolling, we would just note that there appears to be a period necessary after it says enact ordinances, and with that strike through is acceptable. Okay.
Yeah, I would just add that what staff said, we weren't looking to change anything at all in the amendments. We're actually fine with the changes that were made in the January 31st revision. We were just looking to, one, correct some inaccuracies. We felt like there were some things that were overstated, and we just didn't want to see some of the language justifying the changes necessarily undermine future local source control ordinances that might be passed.
Anything else?
That's still a continuation on page
99.
In general, I like fewer words.
That's what we were going for.
Oh, now you're adding words.
Oh,
That's
no,
not
no,
good.
I want to clarify, everything in red there is the corrected version of this document's page 99. So it's no added rhetoric from the environmental community. It's what you saw previously for SED page 99, but as corrected in this document, and then just recut and pasted there. So it's the SED's own words, only corrected, which is why it was in red. But it's no additions from us.
So, I can turn to the SED and confirm, but I think the red language, the red text in the first sentence.
That may be added.
So outside of that added language there, as she just noted, the red text following in that paragraph, which is quite a bit of red text, that's actually a reflection of our revised documents, which we reflected all the added language in red. So what she would be proposing there is the red language in the first sentence to be added, and then the strike through to be stricken. Going down further, the sentence beginning with contrary to ordinances, that's existing in the SED. That's not proposed language. What's proposed in that section is adding may involve if. So the underlying text there is proposed language to be added, which is acceptable to us. We would not propose that it be on all capped in any event.
And that's how you would say it. May be.
Before we go too far, it certainly would be my preference that we not add any additional language at this point that has not already been included in the SED. I think,
Understood. We're fine with that, too.
so with respect to this page, I would suggest that if the board were inclined to accept some of the proposed changes in terms of removing some of the unnecessary anticipatory type language, I'm comfortable with that. But as far as adding language that may or may not be misinterpreted or misread one way or another, I would prefer we not do that.
There's one exception I think we're going to ask the board to indulge staff on, because there's a bit of a gap in terms of the rationale if we do accept all of the deletions, where I think Stacy has some language that she's drafted where we would ask that the board direct staff to make that change in the staff report as well.
We'll get to that at the end. Right. Please continue, Leslie.
170 is the last. Yeah, it's the last amount, and it's all redactions. I think there's one added fees charged for disposables, but again, if you prefer not to add that, that's fine. It's just inserted for sake of thoroughness. And that's it. And that's it.
I prefer we not add at this point, at least not add in addition to what staff might be recommending, just to clarify some changes that were made.
Understood.
So with that, the proposed language that we would recommend adding is essentially to maintain consistency with the approach of this evolving trash amendments that's occurred, and being comfortable with removing the language they're proposing for strike-through, but not losing an essential point. And so we would propose to add, if you could scroll up, please. Could you scroll up? Keep going. Okay, stop. Go down. So the sentence beginning with "if enacted," Senate Bill 270. So what we would propose adding before that sentence is an explanation that identifies that staff does not anticipate that plastic bag bans would be enacted as ordinances in response to the trash amendments for several reasons. And that is due to the enactment of Senate Bill 270, which effectively implements a statewide trash ban across the state. There is a referendum on that, but the referendum is subject to a majority vote. And clarifying that Senate Bill 270 is a ban on single-use plastic bags, not trash per se. That would be amazing. And then finally, with the recognition that over 140 cities and counties have already implemented bans on single-use plastic bags to date. And so for those reasons, we don't anticipate a plastic bag ban occurring to respond to these trash amendments. We do acknowledge, however, that hypothetically, if there were to be such a ban implemented to respond to the trash amendments, that we would anticipate that any such ban would be consistent with those that have occurred already to date across the states. And that is to say that it doesn't, it minimizes substitution, and in so doing does not create an environmental impact. And with that insert, we would be comfortable with all of their proposed excising of the text.
Could I ask Ms. Gillespie if she would consider "if enacted and upheld" SB 270, if you're not going to refer to the referendum, because it may not be upheld, in which case that sentence would not be, it would be obsolete.
I think the sentence would be correct in the context of the added language where we acknowledge there's a current referendum pending on.
Okay, okay, thank you, thanks.
I think so, because it is a for example in an environmental disclosure analysis, or a disclosure of environmental impact. So it's, for example, this type of ban, is evidence that, the trash amendments won't compel this type of activity, and therefore no environmental impact.
Thank you to the board and to staff for being receptive to our concerns about how language in the SED will be used, even though it does not have the same regulatory impact as the amendment itself. And I'll turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you. Jen Eggerly with the Natural Resources Defense Council.
And we'll start the clock again.
Oh, thank you. Overall, we're very supportive of the trash amendments and believe this policy will go a long way towards protecting California's watersheds and coastal waters from the threats of trash pollution. We want to thank the board and for its leadership on this issue and your staff for all of their hard work. However, we'd like to flag 2 issues that continue to concern us. The lack of a numeric standard for zero trash and the requirement to reconsider 13 of the 15 trash TMDLs for the Los Angeles region. First, we continue to believe that the amendments should include a numeric standard of zero trash present in California waterways instead of a narrative water quality objective. Water quality objectives must be set at a level that is technically and scientifically necessary to protect beneficial uses. A numeric water quality objective of zero trash reflects the reality that there are no acceptable levels of trash that may be present in state waters without impairing a number of beneficial uses, including recreation, habitat, and municipal and domestic water supply uses. The Los Angeles Regional Water Board has already made this determination, which was upheld in court. Although there are technical challenges to eliminating all trash entering jurisdictional waters, properly designed and maintained full capture systems are established means of eliminating discharge of trash from municipal separate storm sewer systems. In the development of the Los Angeles River TMDL, the LA Regional Water Board found that since littering is unlawful, a target of zero trash is the only defensible position. Regional Water Board staff found no study to document that there is an acceptable level of trash that will cause no harm to aquatic life, and absent such a study, staff is compelled to adopt a zero target. The Los Angeles Regional Water Board rationale that even a single piece of trash can be detrimental and no level of trash is acceptable should be applied to waters across the state. Therefore, we urge the State Board to establish a statewide numeric water quality objective of zero trash to protect the beneficial uses of state waters from trash pollution. Second, while we appreciate that the board has allowed the LA River and Ballona Creek TMDLs to remain in place, we strongly urge you to remove the reconsideration provision for the other 13 trash TMDLs in Region 4. NRDC, Heal the Bay, Los Angeles Waterkeeper, and many others participated in the lengthy public process employed by Region 4 for the development of these TMDLs, which have more stringent provisions than the proposed final trash amendments. We've seen great success in the trash reductions as a result of these TMDLs in the Los Angeles region and praise the State Water Board for modeling the trash amendments after them. The City of Los Angeles reported in 2013 over 1 million gallons of trash were captured prior to entering the Los Angeles River. These diversion rates are commendable, and they demonstrate the success of trash TMDLs to date. Given the success of these trash controls and the fact that Region 4 trash TMDLs are projected to meet compliance soon, we believe that the requirements of the LA Water Board to reconsider the scope of 13 of the 15 trash TMDLs is inappropriate and unnecessary. We urge you to eliminate the requirement for the LA Water Board to reconsider the scope of these TMDLs and allow the more stringent provisions of the 15 TMDLs in Region 4 to remain in place. In conclusion, the Los Angeles TMDLs serve as a model for effective trash control, and we applaud the state boards for its statewide application of these controls. Thank you for your incredible effort to reduce trash discharge in our state waterways.
Maybe I'll just hold it. That's
That's all right. I don't mind. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Sikic. I'm Vice President for Heal the Bay, and I thank staff and the board for their hard work on this very landmark policy. We've been a part of it from the start, and we're really excited to be here today at the adoption hearing. I'll gloss over these first couple of slides quickly because staff did just a great job presenting the economic, environmental, and societal issues that trash faces, our coasts face from trash. The photos there are from the LA region, Santa Monica Beach after a storm, as well as a poor little sea lion that was rescued by a Marine Mammal Rescue Center for trying to eat some trash. From an LA perspective, this is really important. Obviously, we've heard about the trash TMDLs that we've got. We're leading the way in terms of regions on trash TMDLs, but it's really important to go statewide, and we're pleased to see that the LA trash TMDLs are serving as a model for this particular policy. I also wanted to acknowledge the landmark MS4 permit that we're currently implementing in LA. Taking that watershed approach, it will incorporate all of the TMDLs and the 303D listings. We've heard from some communities that there's so many different pollutants they're facing from. Maybe they should just focus on other ones and not trash. And it's important to recognize that that doesn't really make sense, and trash can actually exacerbate other pollution issues like bacteria. This is also some of the work that your board has done in doing a review of the various different TMDLs and water quality regulations. The state board has found that the LA River Trash TMDL is quite successful and that conditions are improving. The first couple of milestones in 2010 and 2011 were actually ahead of schedule. So instead of meeting the 60% reduction that was scheduled for in 2011, the municipalities were at 75% reduction from the baseline. So we saw some really good success early on, and as the speaker before me mentioned, we're still seeing great success. There's a couple of reaches that are behind, but in large part we're seeing a lot of trash be collected and good achievements of the different milestones that are included in the trash TMDLs. Here's just some of the reporting in terms of volumes, both for the LA River Trash TMDL and the Ballona Creek Trash TMDL. These are the volumes that were withheld in 2013, and this is really speaking to the effectiveness of the full capture devices. That's what the compliance is measured upon, and you can see very large volumes of trash being collected through implementation of those TMDLs. I did want to make an appeal just in terms of monitoring, and you've heard some of these comments from previous speakers. We are very pleased to see the annual monitoring reports required. I think that'll be really useful in terms of tracking effectiveness of this particular policy. We do ask that those would be made available to the public. It will be really helpful for us to also understand how things are going and help with advocacy on the local level. So hopefully that can be part of the tracking and reporting piece. It would also be helpful to have clear and consistent guidelines for Track 2 monitoring. Thank you, Member Dodek, for speaking to that in your comments. It's really important to us in terms of looking at how effective Track 2 is. There are some questions about that. And then also to the extent that we can compare across regions and really understand as a whole how California is doing, that will be quite helpful as well. And then in terms of Track 1, we understand it's full capture based, and monitoring is about what full capture devices have been put into place, but we would like to see some receiving water monitoring just to make sure that these pollutants aren't getting into the stream, and if they are, what they are, so we can try to do the right things to try to minimize future trash pollution. Lastly, before I turn it over to the next speaker, I just wanted to thank you again for leading the way on this. I sit on the West Coast Governors Agreement, Ocean Health, and Marine Debris Alliance, and they are watching you closely. Other states are watching you closely, and I think it's really exciting that we're here today to look at this trash issue.
Sean, you don't have to thank us. Just go to it. We know we're wonderful.
My name is Sean Bothwell. I'm the staff attorney for the California Coastkeeper Alliance. We represent 12 California water keepers statewide, and I can say that each and every one of them have concerns with trash in their watershed. The majority of our water keepers hold regularly scheduled cleanups, both beach and river cleanups, with board members and local organizations. We began this process back in 2010 with the initial scoping, and I've been on the public advisory group since 2011. And after 4 years of meetings and comments and workshops and even field trips, today we have the opportunity to adopt the nation's first ever statewide policy to address discharges of trash in our waterways. And unfortunately, there's going to be some groups that will present later that don't believe trash is a priority. As you will hear, they believe, you know, the status quo of trash is an acceptable thing, and there's other priorities out there. This is a waterway in the San Diego region, and as you can see, there's a trash problem there. It's another waterway in San Diego of depicting the trash issue. And the third waterway in the San Diego region, clearly overflown by trash. You know, San Diego is the second largest city in California, and they don't have a trash program. 4 of the 5 top cities do have trash programs, and San Diego doesn't. I think from these pictures you can tell trash should be a priority for them, and there is a problem there, and we need this statewide policy for across the state, and not just areas like LA and San Francisco. I need to address the term sheet that came out on Saturday night. You know, we were caught off guard by it, to be quite frank. You know, I have been doing this for 4 years, and I never heard that LID was going to be considered under Track 1. And one of our main concern comes from this idea that we're just not sure of how effective LID can be. I mean, as your SED explains, it's an unproven technology for directly addressing trash pollution in the MS4s. For time, I'm going to skip over that one. These are just some of LID projects, and you know, I had a hard time envisioning how trash like plastic bags and cups in the pictures you saw earlier would be captured in these type of LID devices. And so I guess rather than have opposition to that change sheet, I guess I have more questions for staff of, you know, if these type of LID devices were used to capture trash and they were filled with trash bags, would the ability to retain stormwater in these decrease? Would they not be able to capture storm as they were designed if they're filled with trash? And I think that's one of our concerns.
Wouldn't that be the same for a catch basin insert?
So actually, if you could go back, since I love pictures.
Oh, back.
Okay, so Mr. Bishop or Mr. Howard, since you know one of you will be certifying these or will be reviewing them for certification as a full capture device. So
That would be me.
yeah, so that'll be you.
So I can't
What do you do?
from a picture be able to tell you if I'd certify it or not, but I can give you some indications by looking at it.
What would you be looking
So
for?
in the top left-hand picture, it looks to me like a swale system. Normally, a swale system slows water down but doesn't retain it, and so it wouldn't. And unless it had a 5mm mesh screen at the end, it wouldn't qualify. Just off of my looking at the picture, looking at the picture of the top right looks to me to be a infiltration catchment there, a basin. If it was sized to capture the storm event and it didn't have an overflow that allowed it to overflow prior to meeting the storm event, it would maybe meet the certification. So I would be looking at both the capture of particles that meet the size requirement and the storm event, and looking to see if we would get full capture from those. What we were trying to do with the amendment was to show that just because it's LID doesn't mean it doesn't qualify, but it has to meet all the certification requirements before it could qualify.
And the qualification certainly helped us. And to answer your question, Member Moore, my concern isn't necessarily that it'll fill up with trash and then some trash will be released from it. My concern is if it's filled with plastic bags, if it was originally intended to retain other stormwater pollutants, will it lose that efficiency if it's covered in trash bags?
These are good questions, but there are other issues like street tree leaves, which can affect these installations too. And so this just speaks to the issue that low impact development, green streets, other things like that still have to be monitored and maintained, just like any other infrastructure in urban drainage.
And I think I agree with that. We actually support LID in Track 2 because there's that monitoring provision.
Oh, and so now you're going to touch on something that I feel fairly strongly about. and that is what signal do we send to the public works directors of counties and cities of our state if we say that it is a second tier choice to implement LID? It's
Second tier for the purpose of trash capture.
right, right. But remember, okay, we can have a. Let me tell
All
you.
right,
a little
let's
bit
roll up
something.
the sleeves.
Because urban drainage, the way it has been designed, is fast conveyance, and it affects waterways, and it affects waterways' ability to meet standards. So the key to reconciliation of 20th century drainage standards to 21st century water quality standards is to mimic natural processes, such as that is done by LID, to disconnect waterways from the pollutants. And so trash is a great tracer for pollutants that come from the post-war, automobile revolution that created all of this urban drainage. And not just in LA or San Francisco, but San Diego, Salinas, Santa Rosa, Redding, Fresno. Every city has these drainage urban standards. And so to say that it's a second tier approach to dealing with trash means it's second tier to dealing with urban pollutants. And so, with the proper design that Jonathan pointed out, you can still achieve track 1 compliance.
I think our concern just comes from a precautionary approach of, you read the SED language of it's never been a proven method for directly capturing trash. I understand what you say to the other stormwater pollutants, but it's never been used to directly address trash. And so from that, we feel like a precautionary approach of having that monitoring to just ensure that there aren't these unintended consequences that we didn't think through. That's where we're going at with that.
And I think, if there's a commitment of cities or counties to implement LID, we want to take every opportunity as the water boards to find a way to show where it also benefits things like trash. And if fine-tuning is necessary, that our regional boards can be counted on to make sure that happens and really keep the veracity of a track 1 approach for trash control intact.
I'll move on. I'll go through this slide pretty quickly. As the language in track 1 reads, it says that you use full capture devices 100% to come into compliance. And then below that is the definitions. And what I heard from staff was, well, full capture is defined as a treatment control, and LID is defined as a treatment control, so therefore LID kind of has always been under full capture. And the way I read these definitions, the term treatment control, that's the umbrella term. And just because LID is a treatment control and full capture, it doesn't mean they're interchangeable. All full capture devices are treatment controls, but all treatment controls aren't full capture. And so it was a little blindsiding to us when we saw the amendment, the track change on Saturday, because we never thought that LID was in there, and it really never came up in the discussions in any of the PAG groups or any of the workshops that we had done to date. So I just want to caution the board to think about unintended consequences of this being in track 1.
Okay.
Finally, I just want to request that the board consider a trash hotspot program. In our last comments, we had asked that you would direct staff in the near future, in the possible next year, to come up with a trash hotspot program to look at the areas where you're directly discharging trash into waterways. And we had requested that 3 areas be kind of prioritized. High-use beaches, like this screen here. Homeless encampments, like this one here, that will not be addressed by the trash amendments. And then high-use parks next to waterways, like this one here by Humboldt Bay, that will not be addressed by trash pollution. So I proposed this resolution language, directing staff. I know that with the drought and the drinking water program that you have a lot on your plate right now, and implementing this will be a lot. But to direct staff to look in their stormwater strategic initiative and think about doing a trash hotspot program there. Finally, I just want to thank the board for their leadership on this issue. and I'll do it
You've
fast.
you've taken time away from your colleague.
I'll stop then because my colleague's my boss.
Okay. Yes, I had noted that. Can you add 2 minutes to the clock so Sarah has the chance to say something? But not thank you.
It's hard to come up here and not say thank you, but I'm Sarah Manzata. I'm the Executive Director of California Coastkeeper Alliance and Sean's Bath, as has been noted. And I just have a very simple statement for the board, and that is simply that trash-free waters are good for business. I'm here today representing more than 25 businesses that are listed on the screen behind you, and hopefully you've received this document in your packet as well. This is an economics issue for California as much, if not more, than an environmental one. And it was incredibly inspiring to talk with all of these businesses who are kayak outfitters, who make a living off of sharing our coasts, our bay, and our rivers with both tourists and residents, and are passionate about this issue. I spoke with a kayak operator in Sausalito, and his only question for me as I sort of launched into the description of the policy and what we were asking is there anyone who wouldn't support this? So from a business owner perspective, at least the ones that we spoke with, this is a sort of no regrets policy. They stand strongly in support of this effort, and I'm just here today to carry forth that message. I'll just read a few sentences from the statement. California's economy is powered by our coast, ocean, bays, rivers, and creeks. But too many of our waterways are choked with trash. It is clogging the rivers and streams where we work and play, and littering the beaches that power a $39 billion coastal economy. While California has a rich river and coastal cleanup tradition, far more trash reaches our waters than can be removed. Fortunately, we can clean up our creeks and coastline by tackling the problem upstream. Our businesses support the new California trash policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, actually. This is great.
Thank you. And Sarah, actually, if you could forward an acknowledgement from me. Hip Camp has an awesome website.
Do that. Thank you.
Okay, the next, there will be, I'm going to read off probably about 15 names, and if you could come up to the front row, it really is faster. Cheryl Hun, Joanne Weber, Anita Coleman, Heidi Sanborn, Miriam Gordon, Dave Tamayo, Stephanie Gaines, Joanne Weber again. Interesting. Really? Okay. Manny Pitto, P-I-T-T-O, Rob Kanicki, Benjamin Moody, and we'll stop there. I still have a bunch, so let's start with that. First is Cheryl. Thank you, Cheryl.
Hi, we had a short slideshow with this as well.
Okay, great.
Hi, my name, good afternoon.
Oh, 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Spivey Weber and board members. My name is Cheryl Hune with the City of Sacramento, and speaking with me is Joanne Weber with San Diego County, and we're here today to provide comments on behalf of the Signature Coalition. We know it's not a very catchy name, but that's what we have here today. The Signature Coalition is comprised of local governmental agencies and organizations representing all of the different types of communities that will be impacted by the implementation of the trash amendment. The coalition is comprised of approximately 55 agencies and organizations, and 28 of those agencies have provided proxies that we could speak on their behalf today. We wanted to start by clearly stating that the coalition supports clean waterways, and we support the reduction of trash in our waterways. The coalition consists of entities ranging from large Phase 1 communities to small rural communities, from inland communities to coastal communities, from communities located in the far north of our state to communities located in the far south of our state. Few single stormwater actions affect such a large number of diverse stakeholders. Also, organizations including the California State Association of Counties and the Rural Community of Rural Counties have joined in this effort and have reached out to their membership. Today we're going to go over some of the key points from a letter that we shared with you earlier today. We want to thank the board members for their time over the past couple weeks to discuss and hear our concerns on this far-reaching regulation that is under consideration today. We have worked together toward a more reasonable approach of reducing trash in our waterways throughout the state. Can we go to the third slide? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Despite these efforts and the great strides made in shared understanding, there's more to be done to develop a workable and cost-effective regulation that is focused on areas of documented trash problems. The Signature Coalition respectfully requests that the State Board delay adoption of the trash amendment and request your staff to meet with stakeholders to develop readily implemented monitoring approaches to demonstrate compliance with the Track 2 full capture equivalency requirement. Secondly, request staff to work with stakeholders to develop a more cost-effective and strategic approach to addressing trash using a prioritization approach to first address trash in areas with documented trash problems. Next slide. If the board chooses to adopt the policy today, we request several changes to Track 2 to provide us a lifeline to make Track 2 a more viable implementation option.
I'm sorry, but I'd like to just interrupt you here. In light of the fact that we have this change sheet, is it possible for you and the others that will be speaking to respond to this change sheet and how it addresses these concerns or does not address your concerns?
Sure, we can do that in the second part of our presentation. The Signature Coalition requests two key changes to the statewide trash amendments to support effective implementation of controls in areas where trash is a problem. First and foremost, include visual assessment approaches as examples for demonstrating full capture equivalency. And secondly, explicitly state in the regulation that the implementation plan will include a prioritization approach that addresses documented high generating trash areas first. This supports an outcome-based approach with a cost-effective strategy by first reducing trash in the areas of the greatest need.
Given the staff presentation earlier and some of the modification in the change sheet with respect to Track 2, in what way did the staff, clarification did not address your concerns about city's ability or flexibility to address high trash priority areas?
I think it would be helpful to us to have the specific wording changes that we're asking so that it makes it clear for us on using the visual assessment approach and the priority approach.
Not the visual assessment, I'm not going there, but in terms of just the priority areas, the high trash area. I mean, I think that's what we all want. So in what way did the change sheet not highlight the fact that you would have the flexibility to identify those areas and focus on those areas in Track 2?
I think the added language does help to clarify that along with the presentations that were given today. We still are just looking for a little bit more clarity. Okay, let's see. How do I change it? Oh no, change the, oh, okay, okay. So I just say next slide or? Okay, great. To the right, okay. The Signature Coalition requests that you incorporate readily implementable yet proven methods for demonstrating compliance with Track 2 based on the experiences of Los Angeles and Bay Area. Trash can be tough to assess because the variability in types of trash makes it hard to find a metric that can be used for comparability across locations. Several agencies in Southern California have recently gotten approval from their regional board to move from the more quantitative examples used in the trash amendments currently to a visual assessment approach by showing that the information is more informative and more cost-effective to collect.
Visual assessments provide a clear and straightforward way of showing compliance that the examples currently in the policy do not. Both SWAMP Rapid Assessment Trash Protocols and the Keep America Beautiful Trash Index define categories that range from low to high. By setting a target of getting to the lowest categories of trash in the visual assessment, compliance can clearly be shown. It avoids the common pitfalls in the trash assessments of trying to compare different types of trash that can be collected during different events. It is important for the amendments to clearly acknowledge that as an example method, as a strict read of the wording, things like the use of trash load could lead regional boards to not view visual assessments as an allowed method. Okay, let's see. To address this request, we have provided some green line changes to the staff's March 26th draft, and I should note that the change sheet that just came out on Saturday did not really directly address our two main asks.